Marcus Webb wiped the sweat from his forehead as he climbed out of the mining shuttle. The asteroid they called Home Base 7 looked like any other rock floating in space. Big, dark, and full of valuable metals. That was what the aliens thought. Anyway, he walked through the airlock and into what should have been a simple mining station. Instead, he found himself in a corridor that stretched for miles in both directions. The walls were made of metal so smooth it looked like glass. Lights ran along the ceiling in perfect lines, leading to places that most aliens would never imagine. Marcus had been working here for 5 years. His official job was asteroid mining supervisor. His real job was much more important. He was helping to build the largest secret in human history. The Galactic Council thought they knew everything about humans. They thought humans were good workers but not very smart. They thought humans were happy to dig rocks and build things for other species. They thought humans would never fight back. They were wrong about everything. Marcus took the transport tube that ran through the center of the asteroid. The tube was big enough to fit a small spaceship inside it. As he traveled, he looked out through the transparent walls and saw the truth that no alien had ever seen. The asteroid was hollow. Completely hollow. And inside that hollow space was a city. Buildings rose up from the curved inner surface like metal trees. Parks and gardens filled the spaces between them. People walked on paths that followed the gentle curve of the asteroid's inner wall. Children played in playgrounds that hung in the low gravity. It was beautiful and impossible and completely secret. The transport tube carried Marcus to the command center. This was where Admiral Sarah Chun worked. She was the leader of this secret project, and she was the reason the Galactic Council would soon learn that they had made a very big mistake. Marcus found Admiral Chun standing in front of a wall covered with screens. Each screen showed a different part of their secret operation. Some showed other hollowed-out asteroids like this one. Some showed human colonies that looked normal on the surface but hid amazing secrets below ground. Some showed the construction yards where the most important work was happening. "How are we doing today, Marcus?" Admiral Chen asked without turning around. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes. But when she spoke, everyone listened. She had the kind of voice that made you believe anything was possible. "The mining quotas are on schedule," Marcus said. This was their code. It meant that their secret work was going well. The council inspectors bought our reports completely. "They think we found some new metal deposits," Admiral Chun smiled. "Good. They see exactly what we want them to see." The truth was that humans had been lying to the Galactic Council for over 200 years. It started small, a little extra metal here and there. Some equipment that got lost in shipping. Slowly, carefully, humans began to save up resources that the Council thought were being used for normal things. At first, they just wanted to build better defenses for their colonies. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and the Council's protection only went so far. But as the years passed, the plan became bigger and more ambitious. "Show me the latest reports," Admiral Chun said. Marcus activated his datapad and the screens around them changed. Now they showed the real numbers. The real truth about what humanity had been building in secret. 17 asteroids had been completely hollowed out and turned into mobile cities. Each one could support billions of people. Each one had weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Each one had engines that could move it faster than anything the aliens had ever built, but the asteroids were just the beginning. "Terra's resolve is ready," Admiral Chen said, pointing to the largest screen. It showed something that looked like a small planet, because that's exactly what it was. Humans had found a dead world in an empty star system. For 50 years, they had been digging it out and filling it with everything they needed for their plan. Cities that could house 40 billion people. Factories that could build entire space fleets. Weapons that could crack moons in half. It was a planet-sized warship. And it was just one of 3. "The council meeting is tomorrow," Marcus said. "Are you sure we're ready for this?" Admiral Chen turned to look at him. Her tired eyes were filled with something that might have been sadness. "We've been ready for this day since the first human knelt before the council and pretended to be grateful for their scraps. She walked over to another screen that showed a recording from 300 years ago. A human diplomat bowing low before a group of aliens who looked down at him like he was some kind of pet. The aliens were tall and proud. The human looked small and weak. "That man's name was David Kim," Admiral Chun said. "He was my great-great-grandfather." And while he was bowing and smiling and acting grateful, he was memorizing everything: the aliens' weaknesses, their ship designs, the locations of their homeworlds. He came home and helped start the greatest deception in galactic history. Marcus watched the old recording and felt anger building in his chest. For 3 centuries, humans had been treated like servants. They were given the worst jobs and the most dangerous missions. They were told where they could live and what they could build. They were never allowed to forget that they were the newest and weakest species in the galaxy. But they were not weak, they were patient. "Every human who worked in alien shipyards memorized the designs," Admiral Chun continued. "Every human who served on alien ships learned their weaknesses. Every human diplomat who smiled and bowed came home with new intelligence. For 300 years we learned everything about them while they learned nothing about us." The screens around them showed the fruits of that patience. Hidden factories on dozens of worlds. Secret research stations in empty star systems. Weapons that used technology the aliens thought humans were too stupid to understand. "The Council thinks they're voting tomorrow on something called the Human Reorganization Protocol," Admiral Chun said. "What they're really voting on is their own surrender." Marcus knew about the protocol. The aliens were tired of pretending that humans were equals. They wanted to make it official that humans were servants. They wanted to take direct control of all human colonies and make sure humans never got ideas above their station. It was the excuse humanity had been waiting for. "Signal all units," Admiral Chun ordered. "It's time to stop hiding." The command went out across the galaxy. On dozens of worlds, in hundreds of star systems, humans received the same message. 300 years of preparation were about to pay off. Marcus watched the screens as the secret came to light. Asteroids that had looked empty suddenly came alive with lights and movement. Dead worlds revealed themselves to be massive ships. Mining stations dropped their disguises and showed their true purpose as military bases. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity had been building an empire in secret. An empire designed not to conquer, but to survive. "Do you think it will work?" Marcus asked. Admiral Chen smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "The Council has always thought that power comes from having the biggest weapons. They're about to learn that real power comes from having the best plan." She pointed to a screen that showed the Zephyrian Grand Fleet moving toward Earth. The aliens were confident and proud, flying in perfect formation toward what they thought would be an easy victory. They had no idea that they were flying into a trap that had been 3 centuries in the making. "They're about to learn that humans are very good at keeping secrets," Admiral Chun said. "And we're even better at patience." Marcus felt a mix of excitement and fear as he watched the alien fleet approach. Tomorrow, everything would change. The galaxy would learn that the quiet, hard-working humans had been planning something amazing all along. The age of pretending was over. The age of truth was about to begin. Admiral Chun turned away from the screens and walked toward the observation deck. Through the transparent walls, they could see other asteroids in the distance. Each one was home to millions of humans who had lived their entire lives in secret, waiting for this moment. "Tomorrow we stop being their servants," she said quietly. "Tomorrow we remind the galaxy that humanity did not come this far just to bow to anyone." Marcus nodded and followed her to the observation deck. In the distance, he could see Terra's resolve beginning to move. The planet-sized ship was leaving its hiding place and heading toward the core worlds of the galaxy. It was time for the Galactic Council to meet the real humanity. And it was time for everything to change. Admiral Kethver stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display with growing confusion. The Zephyrian Grand Fleet was approaching the Sol system, expecting to find the usual collection of human orbital stations and mining platforms. Instead, his sensors were showing something impossible. "Admiral," his tactical officer called out, his voice tight with worry. "We're detecting 3 large objects moving in formation toward our position." Kethver walked over to the sensor station. His 4 arms moved quickly over the controls as he tried to make sense of what he was seeing. The objects were massive, bigger than anything he had ever encountered in 40 years of military service. "How large?" he asked. "Sir, they appear to be approximately 12,000 kilometers in diameter each." Kethver's mandibles clicked nervously. That was impossible. Nothing that large could move through space at the speeds his sensors were detecting. The largest ships in the Zephyrian fleet were barely 10 kilometers long. "Are they natural objects? Asteroids, perhaps?" The tactical officer shook his head. "No, sir. They're showing clear signs of artificial construction, and they're accelerating directly toward us in perfect formation." Kethver felt a cold fear growing in his stomach. In all his years serving the hegemony, he had never encountered anything that challenged their complete understanding of space warfare. The Zephyrians were the dominant military power in the galaxy. Their ships were faster, stronger, and more advanced than anything other species could build, but these objects were beyond anything in their databases. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," the communications officer announced. "It's coming from the lead object. The signal is being broadcast on all frequencies across the entire galaxy." "Put it on screen," Kethver ordered. The main view screen flickered and then showed the image of a human woman. She appeared to be middle-aged with graying hair and calm eyes. She was sitting in what looked like a command center, but the scale was all wrong. The room behind her seemed to stretch for kilometers in every direction. "To the members of the Galactic Council," the woman began, her voice clear and steady. "My name is Admiral Sarah Chun of the Human Defense Fleet. For 300 years you have treated humanity as your servants." Kethver felt his blood run cold. This was impossible. Humans didn't have admirals. They barely had a space fleet at all. They were miners and builders, not warriors. "You have limited our growth," Admiral Chun continued. "You have restricted our technology. You have treated our worlds as your personal resource extraction sites. Today that ends." The camera pulled back to show more of the command center. Kethver could see hundreds of humans working at stations that covered the floor like a metal ocean. The technology around them was advanced beyond anything the Zephyrians possessed. "We are not your miners," Chun said, her voice growing stronger. "We are not your servants. We are humanity, and we have been preparing for this day since the moment we first knelt before your council." The view changed to show the exterior of the massive object Chun was speaking from. Kethver gasped as he realized what he was looking at. It was not a ship, it was a planet. An artificial planet covered in cities and weapons and defensive systems that glowed with their own light. "This is Terra's Resolve," Chun announced. "She is our flagship and home to 40 billion human souls, but she is not alone." The view pulled back further to show the other 2 massive objects. Each one was the same size, each one covered in the lights of countless cities. And as Kethver watched in horror, more contacts began appearing on his sensors. "Across the galaxy," Chun continued, 17 more vessels like these are revealing themselves. Each one carries between 10 and 40 billion people. Each one is capable of defending itself against any threat. Each one represents the will of humanity to be free. Kethver's tactical officer was frantically updating the sensor displays. New contacts were appearing throughout the galaxy. Massive objects emerging from asteroid fields, from the dark spaces between stars, from nebulae where no one had thought to look. "This is impossible," Kethver whispered. "Where did they get the resources, the technology?" "Sir," his intelligence officer spoke up, his voice shaking. "I'm reviewing our files on human industrial output for the past 3 centuries. If these numbers are accurate, they've been lying to us about everything. The mining quotas, the manufacturing reports, the population counts. All of it," Admiral Chun's voice continued from the speakers. "Every human who worked in your shipyards was learning your designs. Every human who served on your vessels was studying your weaknesses. Every diplomat who bowed before your council was memorizing your secrets. For 300 years we have been students. Today we graduate. The view screen showed images of human workers throughout the galaxy. In Zephyrian shipyards, in Kethmori trading posts, in ethereal research stations, all of them going about their daily work with quiet efficiency. All of them gathering intelligence that would eventually build these impossible ships. You thought we were weak because we did not fight, Chun said. You thought we were stupid because we did not argue. You thought we were satisfied because we did not complain. You were wrong about everything. Kethver realized that his fleet was now completely surrounded. The 3 planet ships had moved with impossible speed and precision to cut off every escape route. His sensors showed that each one was bristling with weapons that his computers couldn't even identify. "Admiral," his weapons officer called out, "should we prepare to engage?" Kethver looked at the tactical display and felt despair wash over him. His entire fleet consisted of 3,000 ships. The smallest of the human vessels was larger than his entire fleet combined, and there were 20 of them. "Sir, we're receiving additional transmissions," the communications officer announced. "They're coming from Kethmori space, ethereal territory, and every other major system in the galaxy. The humans are revealing themselves everywhere at once." The main screen split to show multiple transmissions from across the galaxy. Human fleets emerging from hiding places that had been in plain sight for centuries. Mining stations transforming into military bases. Cargo ships revealing themselves as scouts for something much larger. In the Kethmori home system, a massive human vessel appeared between the twin suns, its presence causing gravitational disturbances that sent the local defense fleet scrambling. In ethereal space, 3 planet ships materialized out of what everyone had thought was empty void, their arrival disrupting energy fields that the ethereals had maintained for millennia. "The deception is complete," Admiral Chun announced from Terra's Resolve. "Every major power in the galaxy now faces the choice that we have been preparing to offer for 3 centuries. Kethver found his voice at last. "What choice?" he demanded, opening a communication channel to the human fleet. Admiral Chen's image turned to look directly at him through the screen. Her eyes were sad but determined. "The choice between the old way and a better way, Admiral Kethver. The choice between empire and cooperation. The choice between ruling through fear and leading through example." "You're threatening us?" Kethver accused. "No," Chun replied. "We're offering you partnership, equal partnership. No more empires. No more servant species. No more treating entire civilizations as resources to be exploited." The screen showed images of the human planet ships. But now Kethver could see that they weren't just weapons. They were cities. They were worlds where millions of beings lived and worked and raised families. The weapons were there, certainly, but they were clearly defensive. "These ships were not built to conquer," Chun explained. "They were built to survive, and to ensure that no species would ever again face the choice between submission and extinction." Kethver studied the tactical readouts more carefully. The human ships had positioned themselves to defend rather than attack. They had surrounded his fleet, yes, but they hadn't powered up their weapons. They were showing their strength without threatening immediate violence. "What happens if we refuse?" Kethver asked. Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment. "Then you return to your home worlds, and we go to ours. But the galaxy will know that the age of empires is over. Any species that tries to subjugate another will find themselves facing the combined fleets of humanity and every other species that chooses cooperation over domination." The communications officer spoke up again. "Sir, we're receiving reports from across the galaxy. The Syndicate's main battle fleet has been completely surrounded. The Ethereal Collective's core systems are reporting multiple human vessels in their space. Every major power is receiving the same message." Kethver realized that this was not a battle. This was a revolution. In a single day, humanity had revealed that they possessed enough military power to challenge every empire in the galaxy simultaneously. But instead of demanding surrender, they were offering partnership. "Admiral Chun," he said carefully, "how do we know you won't become the new empire? How do we know this isn't just humanity taking control instead of the Council?" Chun smiled, for the first time during the transmission. "Because, Admiral, empires are built on secrets and fear. What we're offering is built on openness and cooperation. Every species that joins us will have access to our technology, our resources, and our protection, including you." The screen changed to show the interior of one of the human ships. Kethver was amazed to see that it wasn't just humans living there. He could see Zephyrians, Kethmori, Ethereals, and dozens of other species working together in the vast cities that filled the artificial world. "Many of your people are already with U.S., Chun explained. "Scientists, engineers, families who were tired of the old ways. They helped us build these ships. They helped us plan this day. They are proof that a better galaxy is possible." Kethver felt his certainty crumbling. Everything he had believed about the galaxy's power structure was being destroyed in real time. The humans, who everyone had dismissed as simple workers, had built the most advanced civilization in galactic history. And they were offering to share it. "What do you want from us?" he asked finally. "We want you to go home," Admiral Chun said simply. "We want you to tell your government that the Galactic Council is dissolved. We want you to tell them that humanity invites the Zephyrian hegemony to join a new confederation where every species has an equal voice, and if they refuse, then they refuse. But they will do so knowing that the age of ruling through superior firepower is over. The strongest military in the galaxy now belongs to the species that believes in cooperation instead of conquest." Kethver looked around his bridge at his officers. They were all staring at the displays showing the impossible human fleet. 3 centuries of Zephyrian military dominance had just ended in a single day. "Admiral Chun," he said slowly, "I think my government will want to hear your proposal." "I hope so, Admiral. The galaxy is large enough for all of us to thrive, but it's too small for any of us to rule." The transmission ended, leaving Kethver alone with his thoughts and his fleet surrounded by planet-sized ships that represented the end of everything he had ever known. The age of empires was over. The age of humanity had begun. High Merchant Zorak of the Kethmori Syndicate slammed her fist on the council table. The sound echoed through the grand chamber where the most powerful beings in the syndicate made their decisions. "This is unacceptable," she declared, her 6 eyes blazing with anger. "Humans are servants. They mine rocks and build things. They do not threaten the syndicate." Around the table, the other high merchants murmured their agreement. For 2,000 years, the Kethmori had controlled trade throughout the galaxy. They decided which species could buy and sell, and at what prices. They had grown rich and powerful by keeping everyone else dependent on their networks. Now some upstart humans thought they could change everything. "The fleet reports are clear," said High Merchant Veltar, his voice filled with worry. "The humans have ships the size of planets. Our scouts confirm at least 20 of them throughout the galaxy." "So what?" Zarak snapped. "Big ships are slow. Ships, our battle fleet is the fastest in the galaxy. We strike hard and fast, destroy their command ship, and the rest will surrender." High Merchant Corwin, the oldest member of the council, shook his head slowly. "You did not see the tactical analysis. These ships move faster than our best cruisers. They appeared in multiple systems simultaneously across thousands of light years." "Impossible," Zarak said. "No ship that large can move that quickly." "The humans seem to specialize in impossible things," Corwin replied, but Zarak was not listening. She had built her fortune on being the strongest voice in the syndicate. She had not gotten where she was by backing down from challenges, especially not from humans. "Ready the battle fleet," she ordered. "We intercept their nearest ship and show the galaxy that the Kethmori Syndicate bows to no one." 3 days later, Admiral Vexra led the Syndicate's finest warships toward the human vessel called New Earth. His fleet consisted of 800 ships, each one a masterpiece of Kethmori engineering. They were fast, deadly, and had never lost a battle, Admiral Vexra had fought in dozens of campaigns across the galaxy. He had broken planetary defenses and shattered enemy fleets. The idea that humans could challenge the Syndicate seemed laughable to him. "Sensors show the human ship ahead," his tactical officer reported. "Distance, 2 million kilometers and closing." "Put it on screen," Vexra ordered. The main view screen showed New Earth hanging in space like a small moon. But as they got closer, Vexra began to understand why his scouts had been so worried. The ship was not just large. It was massive beyond belief. Cities covered its surface like a metal skin. He could see lights moving along what looked like highways that ran for thousands of kilometers. Parks and forests created green patches between the urban areas. This was not just a ship. It was a world where billions of people lived their entire lives. Magnificent, Vexra whispered despite himself. How did they hide something like this? "Sir, the human ship is not changing course," his navigation officer reported. "They're heading straight for our home system." "Then we stop them here," Vexra declared. "All ships, attack formation. Target their weapons and engines." The Syndicate fleet spread out in their classic battle formation. 800 ships moving like a deadly dance, their weapons charging and targeting systems locking onto the massive human vessel. "Range in 30 seconds, the weapons officer announced. "Fire when ready," Vexra ordered. The space between the fleets lit up with energy beams and projectile fire. 800 ships poured their full firepower into New Earth, enough energy to crack a moon and destroy 100 normal fleets. The human ship kept moving forward without slowing down. "Direct hits confirmed," the tactical officer reported, his voice filled with confusion. "But sir, their shields are not even flickering." Vexra stared at the tactical display. His fleet's most powerful weapons were having no effect at all. It was like throwing rocks at a mountain. "Sir, the human ship is responding," the communications officer announced. New Earth began to change. What had looked like cities on its surface now revealed their true purpose. Buildings folded back to reveal weapons that were larger than Vexra's entire flagship. Sections that had appeared to be parks opened up to show missile launchers that could fire projectiles the size of small asteroids. "By the void," Vexra breathed. "The entire planet is a weapon," the human ship fired once. A single beam of energy reached out from its surface and touched the Syndicate flagship. Vexra expected to die. Instead, his ship's systems simply shut down. No explosion, no hull breach. "Just complete power failure. Emergency power," he shouted. "Get us back online." His engineering officer worked frantically at his console. "Sir, it's not damage. It's like they reached into our computer systems and turned us off. I've never seen anything like it." One by one, the other ships in the Syndicate fleet went dark. Not destroyed, just disabled. 800 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy rendered helpless in 17 minutes. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human ship," the communications officer reported, his voice shaking. "Put it through," Vexra said weakly. The screen showed a human man wearing a simple uniform. He looked tired, like someone who had been working a long shift and just wanted to go home. "Admiral Vexra," the human said. "My name is Captain Rodriguez of New Earth. Your ships are disabled, but not harmed. Your crews are safe. We can restore your power at any time." "What do you want?" Vexra asked. "We want you to go home," Captain Rodriguez replied. "We want you to tell your government that we're not interested in fighting. We're interested in talking." "You attacked us?" Vexra protested. Captain Rodriguez looked genuinely confused. "Admiral, you fired first. We just defended ourselves. If we had wanted to attack you, your ships would be debris by now." The truth of that statement hit Vexra like a physical blow. The human ship had disabled his entire fleet with what appeared to be minimum effort. If they had wanted to destroy the Syndicate ships, they clearly had the power to do so. "Why didn't you?" he asked. "Because we're not conquerors, Admiral. We're just tired of being conquered." The transmission ended, and power began returning to Vexra's ships. One by one, his fleet came back online. No damage, no casualties. Just a very clear demonstration of exactly how outmatched they were. 2 days later, New Earth arrived at the Kethmori home system. The Syndicate's remaining fleets had formed a defensive line around their capital world, but they made no move to attack. They had learned their lesson. High Merchant Zarak stood in the command center of the planetary defense grid, watching the massive human ship approach. She had spent the last 2 days reviewing the battle reports and trying to understand how everything had gone so wrong. "They're requesting permission to broadcast to the planet," her communications chief reported. "Denied," Zarak snapped. "We don't negotiate with humans." "Ma'am, they're broadcasting anyway." The signal is being sent directly to every communication device on the planet. The screens around the command center lit up with the image of Admiral Sarah Chun. She looked exactly the same as she had during her first broadcast, calm and determined. "People of the Kethmori Syndicate," she began. "We come to you not as conquerors, but as neighbors. For too long, your leaders have used fear and control to maintain their power. Today we offer you a choice." Zarak tried to cut the transmission, but her technical staff shook their heads helplessly. The human signal was more powerful than anything they could block. "We do not want your worlds," Admiral Chun continued. "We do not want your wealth. We want only what we have always wanted, to be treated as equals, to live in peace, to trade freely, to raise our children without fear." The camera showed images from inside New Earth, Kethmori citizens working alongside humans in laboratories and factories, Kethmori children playing with human children in vast parks, Kethmori merchants conducting business in markets that spanned entire continents. "Many of your people are already with us," Chun explained. "They came to us not as prisoners, but as partners. They helped build the ships you see before you. They are proof that cooperation benefits everyone." Zarak felt her anger growing. "Cut the transmission," she ordered. "Use the defense grid, too. Jam their signal." Her technical chief worked frantically at his controls. "I can't, ma'am. They're using some kind of technology I've never seen before." Admiral Chen's voice continued from the speakers. "We know that your leaders will call this an attack. They will say that we threaten your way of life, but we ask you to judge for yourselves." The view changed to show New Earth positioning itself in orbit around the Kethmori capital. The massive ship moved with impossible grace, settling into a stable orbit that brought it close enough to be seen with the naked eye from the planet's surface. "We could take your world by force," Chun said simply. "But we choose not to. Instead, we offer a demonstration." Zarak watched in horror as a beam of light reached down from New Earth toward the planet's surface. But instead of destruction, the beam began to carefully trace a pattern in the empty desert outside the capital city. The beam was precise beyond belief. It carved through rock and sand like a knife through cloth, but it didn't harm a single building or person. Instead, it wrote a message in letters that could be seen from orbit. "We choose peace," the message read, carved into the desert floor in letters a kilometer high. But that wasn't the most impressive part. As Zarak watched through the defense grid's cameras, she realized that the human beam had not just carved. Through the surface, it had gone deep. Deeper than should have been possible. How deep does that carving go? She asked her geological team. The answer came back after several minutes of frantic scanning. "Ma'am, the beam cut through 50 kilometers of crust and mantle. The message goes all the way down to the molten core." Zarak felt her legs go weak. The humans had just demonstrated that they could reach through an entire planet like it was made of paper. They could have carved right through the capital city, through the government buildings, through everything the Syndicate had built. Instead, they had chosen to write a message about peace. Admiral Chun's voice came from the speakers one last time. "High Merchant Zarak, we know you are listening. We know you are afraid, but we are not here to destroy you. We are here to offer you the chance to be part of something better. The choice is yours. You can continue to rule through fear and control. You can try to fight us with weapons that cannot touch us. Or you can join us in building a galaxy where every species has the chance to prosper." The transmission ended, leaving Zarak alone with her thoughts and the impossible reality of what she had just witnessed. Outside her window, New Earth hung in the sky like a second moon, a constant reminder that the galaxy had changed forever. 3 hours later, High Merchant Zarak did something that no leader of the Kethmori Syndicate had ever done before. She surrendered. The message went out across the galaxy within minutes. The Kethmori Syndicate, one of the oldest and most powerful empires in known space, had formally recognized human authority and requested to join their confederation. It was the first surrender. But it would not be the last. The demonstration had worked. The galaxy was learning that humanity's greatest weapon was not their impossible ships or their advanced technology. It was their choice to use mercy instead of force, and that choice was changing everything. The Ethereal Collective had existed for over 10,000 years. They were beings of pure energy who lived in stations floating in the deep void between stars. For millennia, they had considered themselves above the petty conflicts of physical species. They did not need planets or resources. They did not wage wars over territory or wealth. They simply existed, observing and occasionally sharing their vast knowledge with species they deemed worthy. Elder Lamthara drifted through the central chamber of Station Prime, her energy form flickering with concern. The reports coming in from across the galaxy were disturbing. Physical species were surrendering to humans. Entire empires were collapsing overnight. It should not have mattered to the ethereals. Physical conflicts were beneath their notice. But the humans were not behaving like a typical conquering species. They were not demanding tribute or territory. They were demanding something far more dangerous. They were demanding change. "The humans have made contact," announced Elder Carthax, his energy signature pulsing with worry. "They request an audience with the High Council." Lamthara felt a ripple of amusement flow through her consciousness. "Request? They are physical beings. We do not grant audiences to those bound by matter. Elder, perhaps you should review their message before deciding." The communication appeared in the chamber as patterns of light and energy. But something was wrong. The message was not transmitted through normal physical means. It was being projected directly into their energy realm using methods that should have been impossible for any physical species. "Greetings, elders of the Ethereal Collective," the message began. The voice belonged to Admiral Sarah Chun, but she was somehow speaking directly to their energy forms. "We hope this message finds you in good health and prosperity." Lamthara felt shock ripple through her being. No physical species had ever successfully communicated with them in their own realm. The technology required was beyond anything they had shared with the material universe. "We know that you consider yourselves above the conflicts of physical beings," the message continued. "We respect your position and your achievements. But we also know that your isolation will not protect you from what is coming." Elder Carthax pulsed with confusion. What could threaten us? "We exist beyond the reach of physical weapons." The message seemed to respond to his thoughts. "You exist beyond current physical weapons, Elder Carthax. But we have learned much about energy manipulation in our 3 centuries of preparation." Images began to appear in the chamber. They showed human scientists working with equipment that looked familiar to the ethereals. Too familiar. "For 50 years, volunteers from your people have worked with us in secret," Admiral Chun explained. "Ethereals who grew tired of isolation and wanted to be part of something larger. They taught us about energy manipulation, consciousness transfer, an existence beyond physical form." Lamthara felt growing alarm as she recognized some of the energy signatures in the images. These were members of their own collective, beings she had known for centuries. "We did not steal this knowledge," the message continued. "It was freely given by ethereals who believed that cooperation between all forms of life was possible. They helped us build not just physical ships, but vessels that can exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously." The images changed to show the interior of one of the human planet ships. But now Lamthara could see that it was not just a physical construct. Streams of energy flowed through the ship like a nervous system. Ethereal beings worked alongside humans in laboratories that existed partially in the energy realm. "Station," Prime is no longer hidden from us, Admiral Chun announced. We can see you, reach you, and if necessary, affect you. But we do not wish to do so through force. Elder Karthek's energy form flared with anger. Threats? From physical beings? Not threats, came the reply. Demonstrations. The chamber around them began to change. Walls that had existed for thousands of years started to shimmer and fade. The ethereals watched in growing terror as their greatest sanctuary became transparent to outside observation. Through the fading walls, they could see human ships positioned throughout their realm. Not physical ships, but vessels that existed in the same energy space as the ethereals themselves. This is impossible, Lamthara whispered. No physical species can build in our realm. Physical species cannot, Admiral Chun agreed. But cooperative species can. When ethereals and humans work together, the impossible becomes routine. Elder Zixkara, the most ancient of their kind, materialized in the chamber. Her energy signature was dim with age but bright with wisdom. Show us, she commanded. The images changed to show joint human ethereal research stations. Physical beings and energy beings working side by side on projects that neither could accomplish alone. Ships that could travel through multiple dimensions. Weapons that could affect any form of life. Defenses that could protect against any conceivable threat. We offer you the same choice we have offered everyone else, Admiral Chun said. Join us as equals or remain isolated while the galaxy moves forward without you. Elder Zixkara studied the images carefully. What guarantee do we have that you will not simply absorb us into your empire? Because we are not building an empire, came the reply. We are building something that has never existed before. A true confederation where every species contributes according to their abilities and receives according to their needs. The chamber filled with images from across the galaxy. Former enemies working together on massive construction projects. Zephyrian military expertise combined with Kethmori trade networks. Human industrial capacity merged with alien innovation. Each species brings something unique to the Confederation, Admiral Chun explained. The Zephyrians bring military discipline and tactical expertise. The Kethmori bring economic knowledge and trade relationships. The humans bring industrial capacity and diplomatic patience. And what do we bring? Elder Lamthara asked. Knowledge, Admiral Chun replied simply. 10,000 years of accumulated wisdom. Understanding of energy manipulation that could revolutionize how every species in the galaxy lives and works. The ability to explore realms of existence that physical beings can barely imagine. Elder Zixkara's energy signature brightened with interest. And in return? Partnership, protection, the chance to be part of the greatest cooperative endeavor in galactic history. The images showed plans for the future. Space stations that existed in multiple dimensions. Research projects that combine the knowledge of dozens of species. Ships that could travel not just between stars but between different planes of existence. Think of what we could accomplish together, Admiral Chun continued. Physical beings providing the foundation, energy beings providing the vision. No more isolation. No more limits on what any of us can achieve. Elder Karthek pulsed with skepticism. And if we refuse? Then you remain here in your stations while the rest of the galaxy moves forward, but isolation is no longer safety. Other species will learn what we have learned. They will develop their own methods of reaching you. And they may not be as interested in cooperation as we are. The truth of that statement hung in the chamber like a weight. The humans had proven that the ethereal's isolation was an illusion. If humans could reach them, others eventually would too. We need time to consider, Elder Lamthara said. Of course. But while you consider, know that the offer will not remain open forever. The galaxy is changing quickly now. Those who do not adapt will be left behind. The transmission ended, leaving the ethereals alone with their thoughts and fears. For 3 days, the High Council debated. Ancient beings who had existed since before most current species had developed. Spaceflight argued about a future they had never imagined. On the 4th day, Elder Zixkara made the decision that would change everything. "I vote to join the Human Confederation," she announced to the shocked assembly. "Not because I trust them completely, but because the alternative is to remain static while the universe evolves without us." One by one, the other elders added their agreement. The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. The Ethereal Collective formally joined the Human Confederation, bringing with them knowledge and abilities that multiplied humanity's already impressive capabilities. But they were not the last to join. Across the galaxy, the old empires were crumbling, not through conquest or destruction, but through obsolescence. The human model of cooperation was proving more effective than any form of domination ever created. Species that had been enemies for millennia were working together on projects that benefited everyone. Trade networks that had been controlled by a few powerful groups were opening to all participants. Technology that had been hoarded by empires was being shared freely among Confederation members. Admiral Sarah Chun stood in the command center of Terra's Resolve, watching reports flow in from across the galaxy. Each day brought new applications for membership in the Confederation. Each day brought new proof that cooperation could accomplish what force never could. "Admiral," her aide announced, "we're receiving a transmission from the Vaxan Empire. They're requesting terms for surrender." Chun smiled tiredly. The Vaxans had been one of the most aggressive species in the galaxy, known for conquering and enslaving entire civilizations. Their request for terms was proof that even the most warlike species could see the futility of fighting the new order. "Tell them the same thing we tell everyone," Chun replied. "There are no terms for surrender because we're not accepting surrenders. There are only terms for partnership." She turned to look out at the stars visible through the command center's vast windows. In the distance she could see other ships from the Confederation, Zephyrian cruisers flying in formation with human destroyers, Kethmori traders escorted by vessels from a dozen different species, ethereal energy forms dancing between physical ships like living light. "The old galaxy is dead," she said quietly to herself. "Long live the new one." Her aide looked up from his communications console. "Admiral, the Galactic Council is requesting a meeting. They want to discuss terms for maintaining their authority." Chun almost laughed. The Galactic Council still thought in terms of authority and control. They still believed that power came from the ability to force others to obey. "Tell them that the Galactic Council is dissolved," she replied. "If they want to be part of the new Confederation, they can apply like everyone else, as individuals, not as rulers." The message went out across the galaxy within minutes. The old Galactic Council, which had ruled for over 1,000 years, was officially defunct. In its place was something that had never existed before, a government based on cooperation instead of domination. It was not perfect. There were still conflicts, still disagreements, still species that chose isolation over cooperation. But for the first time in galactic history, no single group had the power to force their will on others. The age of empires was truly over. The age of partnership had begun. And at the center of it all were the humans, the species that everyone had underestimated, proving that the greatest strength was not the ability to destroy, but the wisdom to choose not to. 10 years had passed since the day the galaxy discovered that humanity was more than just miners and builders. Sarah Chun walked slowly through the gardens of Terra's Resolve, her hair now completely white and her steps careful on the winding paths. The gardens had grown beyond anything she had imagined when they first planned this ship. What had started as simple parks were now vast ecosystems that stretched to the horizon. Plants from hundreds of worlds grew together in harmony. Tended by gardeners from dozens of different species, a group of Zephyrian children ran past her, on the path, laughing as they chased a ball that floated in the low gravity. Behind them came human children, trying to keep up with their faster alien friends. Sarah smiled as she watched them play. These children would never know a galaxy where their species were enemies. "Grandmother Sarah, wait for me," called a voice. From behind her, Sarah turned to see her granddaughter Maya jogging to catch up. Maya was 22 now, born 3 years after the revelation. She had grown up in a universe where cooperation between species was normal, where the old empires were just stories from history books. "Sorry I'm late," Maya said, falling into step beside her grandmother. "I was in a conference call with the construction crews for New Harmony. They're ahead of schedule." New Harmony was the newest planet ship being built in the Centauri system. Unlike the original human vessels that had been built in secret, this one was being constructed openly with help from every member species of the Confederation. It would be home to 50 billion beings from 20 different worlds. "How many species are contributing to the construction?" Sarah asked. 37 at last count, Maya replied proudly. "The ethereals are designing the energy systems. The Kethmori are handling the economic planning. The Zephyrians are organizing the defensive systems. And a new species called the Valkyrie just joined the project? They're apparently amazing at atmospheric engineering." Sarah nodded, remembering when such cooperation would have been impossible. Before the revelation, the different species barely tolerated each other. Now they worked together on projects that spanned multiple star systems. They walked in comfortable silence for a while, passing through sections of the garden that represented different worlds. There was a grove of singing trees from the ethereal home dimension, their crystalline leaves making music in the artificial wind. A meadow of grass that changed colors with the seasons, brought from a Kethmori trade world. Flowers that bloomed only in zero gravity, carefully maintained in special chambers throughout the ship. "Grandmother," Maya said eventually, "I've been wondering about something." "What's that, dear?" "Why didn't humanity just take over everything? I mean, with ships like these, we could have conquered the entire galaxy. We could have been the emperors instead of the servants." It was a question Sarah had been asked many times over the years by humans and aliens alike. She led Maya to a bench that overlooked a small lake where fish from a dozen worlds swam together in artificial currents. "Because ruling and leading are different things, Maya," Sarah said, settling down on the bench with a small grunt. "Anyone can rule through fear if they have enough weapons. But to lead, you have to give people a reason to want to follow you." She pointed to a group of engineers working near the lake. There were humans, Zephyrians, Kethmori, and several other species all working together to repair a water circulation system. They talked and laughed as they worked, sharing knowledge and techniques that made all of them better at their jobs. "You see that cooperation?" Sarah asked. "That doesn't happen because we force it. It happens because everyone benefits from working together. The moment we tried to rule instead of lead, that cooperation would disappear." Maya watched the workers for a moment. "But what about the species that refused to join? The ones that chose to stay isolated?" Sarah's expression grew sadder. "Some chose isolation. Others chose to keep fighting. There are still small empires out there, still species that believe in conquest instead of cooperation. But they're getting smaller every year." It was true. The Confederation now included over 200 species, but there were still holdouts. Some had retreated to the edges of the galaxy, maintaining their old ways in increasingly small territories. Others had simply vanished, choosing to hide rather than adapt. "The Kravik Dominion attacked one of our research stations last month," Sarah continued. "They destroyed the station and killed 300 scientists from 12 different species." Maya's face darkened. "What did we do? What we always do. We rebuilt the station, better than before. We rescued the survivors and offered medical aid to the attackers who were injured in the fighting. And we sent them a message." Sarah activated her personal communicator and showed Maya a recording of the message that had been sent to the Kravik Dominion. "To the leaders of the Kravik Dominion," the message began. It was spoken by Admiral Torres, Sarah's successor as the military commander of the human fleet. "Your attack on Research Station Gamma 7 was unprovoked and cost the lives of innocent scientists. However, we do not respond to violence with violence." The recording showed the rebuilt research station, larger and more advanced than the original. Scientists from across the galaxy were already back at work, continuing their research into new forms of faster-than-light travel. "We will not attack your worlds," Admiral Torres continued. We will not seek revenge. Instead, we offer you the same choice we have offered everyone else. Join us as partners in building a better galaxy, or remain isolated while progress continues without you. The message ended with images of the Confederation's newest achievements. Colonies being established in distant galaxies, technologies that could heal diseases that had plagued species for millennia, ships that could travel between dimensions, opening up infinite new frontiers for exploration. Did they respond? Maya asked. 3 of their outer colonies defected to the Confederation within a week, Sarah replied. When your people see what cooperation can accomplish, it becomes harder to justify isolation and conflict. They continued their walk, passing through a section of the garden where a memorial had been built. It honored the lives lost during the transition from the old galaxy to the new one. Most of the names were from the early years when some species had chosen to fight rather than adapt. The hardest part, Sarah said quietly, was convincing our own people that we were doing the right thing. A lot of humans wanted revenge for those 3 centuries of servitude. They wanted to make the other species pay for treating us like servants. Maya looked surprised. Really? But cooperation has worked out so well. It has, but that wasn't obvious at the time. People were angry. They felt like we were being too soft, too forgiving. There were protests, even some attempts at rebellion within our own fleet. Sarah remembered those difficult early years. Human colonies that refused to share their technology with former oppressors. Military commanders who wanted to use their new power to punish old enemies. Politicians who demanded that humanity take its rightful place as the dominant species in the galaxy. What changed their minds? Maya asked. Results, Sarah said simply. When people saw that cooperation produced better outcomes than domination, the arguments for revenge became harder to make. She led Maya to another section of the garden where a large screen displayed real-time updates from across the Confederation, trade reports showing prosperity levels that had never been achieved under the old Empire system, scientific breakthroughs being made by mixed species research teams, cultural exchanges that were creating new art forms and ways of thinking. The galaxy today produces 3 times more food than it did under the old system, Sarah explained. Technology advances twice as fast. Wars have decreased by 90%. People live longer, healthier, happier lives. And it's all because we chose cooperation over conquest? Partly. But also because we proved that cooperation was possible. For thousands of years, species fought each other because they believed. That was the only way to survive. We showed them a different way. Maya was quiet for a long time, processing what her grandmother had told her. Finally, she asked, "What happens next? What's the future of the Confederation?" Sarah smiled and pointed to the stars visible through the transparent dome above them. Out there are millions of galaxies we haven't explored yet. Billions of species we haven't met. Some of them will be peaceful, others will be hostile. But whatever we find, we'll face it together. Are you worried about what we might find? A little, Sarah admitted. But I'm more excited than worried. This Confederation has accomplished things that no single species could ever achieve alone. Imagine what we might accomplish as we grow even larger. They walked to the edge of the garden where a viewing platform offered a perfect view of space. In the distance, Maya could see other ships from the Confederation fleet. There were hundreds of them now, representing every member species. Some were traditional ships like the ones the galaxy had always known. Others were new designs that combined technologies from multiple species. The most amazing thing, Sarah said, is that this is just the beginning. These children playing in our gardens will grow up to explore places we can't even imagine. They'll make discoveries that will change the universe. And they'll do it all together, as partners instead of enemies. A chime sounded from Maya's communicator. She looked at it and smiled. It's time for my shift in the command center. I'm helping to coordinate the supply runs to the outer colonies. Sarah hugged her granddaughter goodbye and watched her walk quickly toward the transport station. Maya would spend her day working with beings from across the galaxy, Solving problems and making decisions that affected billions of lives. It was a responsibility that would have terrified the young humans of Sarah's generation. But Maya took it in stride. After Maya left, Sarah remained on the viewing platform. She thought about the long journey that had brought them to this point. 3. Centuries of careful planning and patient preparation. The risk of revealing their secret. The fear that their gamble might fail and doom humanity to slavery or extinction, but it had worked. Not perfectly, and not without cost, but it had worked. The galaxy was not perfect. There were still conflicts, still problems that needed solving. But for the first time in recorded history, those problems were being addressed through cooperation instead of conquest. A group of young beings from various species walked past her on their way to the gardens. They were laughing and talking in a mixture of languages, planning some kind of joint research project. Sarah recognized a few words here and there, but the universal translators made communication effortless. These young people would never know a galaxy divided by fear and hatred. They would grow up believing that cooperation was normal, that working together was the natural way of solving problems. That Sarah realized was humanity's greatest achievement. Not the planet ships or the advanced technology or even the peaceful overthrow of the old galactic order. Their greatest achievement was proving that a better way was possible, and ensuring that future generations would never have to settle for anything less.